Now, before I get started, I need for you all to make sure that you are sitting down, because what I'm about to share with you all is literally going to blow your mind. Now, the person behind me is running for governor. And if you've been living under a rock and don't know who this is Stacey Yvonne Abrams. And she's been hot on the campaign trail trying to solicit the coveted black vote. But Stacey has been saying some things that just haven't been sitting right with my spirit. She's been saying some things that have me up at night, tossing and turning. And so a friend of mine and I got together to do some research and really uncover the truth about what Stacey Abrams is actually saying. And I can assure you that what you will find will sicken you to the core. And if you've already cast your vote, then I suggest you repent. Now, the statement will bear true, in this case, that all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And honestly, with so much to uncover and so much to reveal, I don't know where to start. But I think we should probably start with the foundation of her campaign, and that is abortion.
As a legislator and as a Georgian, I have fought for reproductive justice. I defeated a bill to inject racial division into medical decisions. I challenged bills that banned insurance coverage for abortion. I battled those who sought to limit a woman's right to control her body, including the 6-week ban that will govern the lives of Georgians. Now the laws of Georgia will further increase maternal mortality rates and incarcerate doctors for up to 10 years, and this is wrong. As your next governor, I will continue to defend a woman's right to choose and to protect the rights of all. What has been done with this law is an assault on our liberties, and we will fight back. As Georgia's governor, I will work every day to ensure access to affordable and safe health care for all, including access to abortion.
Now, do you all really believe that Stacey Abrams can change the abortion laws in Georgia? Now, I know she's been blaming everything on Kemp, but do you honestly believe that she will have the power to change the abortion laws in Georgia? You know, over the past 2 years, there's been this popular trend of fact-checking. So I think we should fact-check what Stacey Abrams is saying.
Georgia Governor Brian Kemp signed the heartbeat law in 2019, banning abortions around 6 weeks in most cases. The controversial law stuck in legal limbo for years, but now that it's in effect, some of you are asking, could a new governor overturn it? Let's verify. Our sources, the Constitution of the state of Georgia, and constitutional law experts Fred Smith with Emory University and Eric Siegel with Georgia State University.
The governor has no legal authority over laws already passed.
So a governor can't, with the stroke of a pen, overturn a law that's already been enacted.
Our experts confirm Georgia's governor does not have sole power to repeal a law. For Verify, I'm Liza Lucas.
So after we fact check Ms. Abrams, we find that the experts all agree that Stacey Abrams would not have the power to change the abortion law in Georgia. Just like the United States government has a president, House of Representatives, and a Senate, so does Georgia, with a governor, House of Representatives, and a Senate. These people scrolling on this list are the Georgia lawmakers, and they are the only people that could change the abortion law in Georgia, an abortion law that they chose, I might add. And also, I might add that these are Georgia lawmakers that you voted for. So let's look at these Georgia lawmakers in action. Let's look at these Georgia lawmakers fact-checking themselves.
There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body away from her.
Gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Heiss, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This hearing is about examining the harm to patients from abortion restrictions, and I would just contend that the primary patient in abortion is the baby. And the harm done to the baby is permanent. It is death. Dr. Rubenhorst, let me come to you. Pro-abortionists want to convince the public that in the abortion debate, we are talking about anything but a human life. Recently, a prominent Democrat who I referred to earlier, Stacey Abrams, said, quote, "There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body away from her," end quote. How do you respond to that?
Thank you for the question, Congressman Heiss. I would respond to that by saying that, as I mentioned a bit ago, there is a fetal heartbeat whether we hear it or not, and we use instruments to amplify that sound. The fetal heartbeat is detectable initially as a twinkling, typically around between possibly as early as 5 weeks. We know that many of the major structures of the fetal heart are complete between the 5th and the 6th week. And so there's no question that this is just not that the fetal heartbeat is a random contraction of cells. There's coordinated movement that's well documented. It's documented in the radiology literature. It's documented in the obstetrical literature. And so I think that the question as to whether this is a manufactured sound. Again, as I said, the fetal heart is beating early in pregnancy. And the other point that I think is very important to make is that we rely on assessments of the fetal heart rate, presence or absence of the fetal heartbeat, in order to assess fetal health and to provide reassurance to parents. One of the most exciting things that can happen for parents is hearing their baby's heartbeat for the first time.
Dr. Ingrid Scott from San Antonio and Dr. Blake Whiteoff from Austin both agree that the heart is not fully formed at 6 weeks, but they believe the term fetal heartbeat is the correct wording of what is being detected by ultrasound at 6 weeks into pregnancy.
The structure is present, the heart, the blood cells are present to be pumped, and the electrical activity is present. Now, the heart will get more complicated. So at the initial point, it's more or less a tube.
The heart's not fully formed at that 6 weeks. There's still development that's happening, but there definitely is a heartbeat.
Now, based on the experts, why would Stacey Abrams lie about the baby not having a heartbeat at 6 weeks? Why would she say it was manufactured when clearly we see it's a real heartbeat? And furthermore, why would she go to an all-male college to tell a bunch of men or young men that the baby's heartbeat was fake? Could it be possible that she would want the men to encourage women to have abortions? Or...
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid.
Oops, I don't think that was supposed to get out. Let's go on to the next slide.
How front and center do you believe the abortion debate should be for Democrats all around the country, let alone your campaign?
It is an essential conversation. It is about the freedom of women to direct their lives. It is about healthcare freedom. And it is cutting across demographics. It's cutting across ideology. It is cutting across the questions that so often dominate elections at this moment, because for women, this is a healthcare conversation. It is an economic conversation.
Healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. How in the world is abortion healthcare? We can all agree that if a person isn't living, there's no health to care for. And I thought when it came to a woman being pregnant, that healthcare was nutrition, and rest, and visiting a physician regularly. But somehow, all that's been reduced to a procedure. But let's listen to what the experts have to say.
I would think that most doctors involved in this whole process, from one way or the other, understand that the baby is a patient.
Yes, sir.
And so the claim that the overwhelming consensus is that abortion is health care, would you agree with that?
No, I don't agree. And as I said earlier, I respectfully disagree with assertions to the contrary, simply because, as I've said, Internists don't perform abortion, and most obstetrician gynecologists don't perform abortions. If abortion was essential health care, why is it that greater than 85% of us don't do it?
Yes, exactly. That was the point I was hoping you would bring out. That does not sound like a consensus at all. In fact, it sounds like more misinformation to pretend that the consensus of doctors in this field believe that abortion is health care.
We've seen it happen in Texas, where a woman was investigated for miscarriage. We've seen what happened in Ohio. We've seen what's happened across this country, women being forced into ectopic ruptures because doctors are afraid to treat ectopic pregnancies. Women are in danger.
Dangerous? Danger is her middle name. Well, actually, it's Yvonne. But what she's promoting is dangerous, and we're about to show you. Now, you heard her mention things like ectopic pregnancy and miscarriage, but let's see what the Human Life Alliance has to say about this. Women who abort are more likely to experience future ectopic pregnancy, infertility, hysterectomy, stillbirth, miscarriage, and premature birth than women who have not had abortions. Women who abort are 144% more likely to physically abuse their children. Women who have undergone previous abortions have a 60% higher risk of miscarriage. So clearly the danger is abortion.
Another deceptive tactic by pro-abortionists is to say abortion restrictions will somehow deprive women of treatments for miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies. How do you respond to that?
Miscarriage treatment is not an abortion. Abortion is a procedure which ends an intrauterine pregnancy which is living, whereas a miscarriage is a miscarriage has occurred when there has been a demised fetus, and therefore you are not proceeding with the intent to kill or take a human life. For an ectopic pregnancy, which is extrauterine or perhaps in parts of the uterus, fallopian tubes, or in the body of the uterus, these pregnancies, if not attended to, can result in devastating consequences, but performing a procedure or administering medication to terminate an ectopic pregnancy is not an abortion.
Now, let's see what the NIH has to say about abortions. You know the National Institute of Health. You know that place ran by your beloved Dr. Fauci. Risk of damage to the cervix by dilation for first trimester induced abortion by suction aspiration. In a study of 104 patients undergoing first trimester abortion, a fall in resistance was found in 12.5% of women in whom the cervix was dilated to 9 millimeters, and in 66.7% when the dilation reached 11 millimeters. Do you understand what I just read? That means at this measurement, a woman has a 12.5% chance of having a future miscarriage. And at this measurement, it jumps up to 66.7%. And you know what's crazy? You didn't even see my fingers move. Imagine how much damage is occurring in the second trimester when the baby is much larger.
2019, 15,000 plus abortions were done. 46% of them were done by Black women. Now, if the KKK had said we will pay for every Black woman to have an abortion who wants one, we would say to ourselves, wait a minute, something's up. Why don't they want us to have our babies? But you see that we don't understand what's going on, and so we're losing so many Black lives that matter.
Do you think that she has a point in terms of losing so many Black lives that matter? I've heard that sentiment from other people as well.
I think that's a very specious argument that's used to cloak what is, I think, a deeply disturbing approach to this conversation. In fact, during my tenure in the legislature, I beat back bill that was designed to deny access to this medical decision using race as a divisive tactic. And I reject that. Black women in Georgia face the highest maternal mortality rate. They're 3 times more likely to die. We know that Black women are the most likely to be underserved by their medical care. And we know that sometimes the choice that they need to make medically, economically, and personally is to have an abortion.
Thank you very much. Final question. Pro-abortionists also claim that abortion is necessary for women due to high rates of maternal mortality. Would you agree with that? What's your reaction to that kind of claim?
It's not true based on any science. There are no studies that show that increasing rates of abortion decrease maternal mortality. In fact, until recently, countries where abortion was criminalized and prohibited, and I'm thinking in particular of Chile and Ireland, and I think Cyprus, had the lowest rates of maternal mortality in the world. For several years consecutively, Ireland had 0 maternal mortality at a time when abortion was completely illegal.
Thank you very much. I found your written statement to be fascinating, and the research there that you provided was incredible. Thank you very much, and I yield back.
You're welcome, sir.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Maryland.
Now, you just heard the doctor, and she stated that in 3 countries where abortion was illegal, there was 0 mortality rate among women giving birth. That is quite telling. But don't take her word for it, and don't take my word for it. Let's see what the NIH has to say about it. You know, that place ran by Dr. Fauci. Legal induced abortion is a root cause of the racial and ethnic disparity noted in maternal mortality. In the United States, the death rate of legal induced abortion performed at 18 weeks gestation is more than double that observed for women experiencing vaginal delivery. Wait a minute. I need you all to process what I just read. I'll be back in 1 minute. Do you understand what you just read? What you just read comes directly from the NIH, the National Institute of Health. The place ran by our beloved Dr. Fauci, the same person that said, trust the science. And this is what the science says. The science says that the difference between white women and black women when it comes to maternal mortality rate is abortion. Stacey Abrams is saying that if you have more abortions, it will decrease your chances of dying while giving birth. That is a lie. It is literally the opposite of what the science says. And I have a tough time believing that Stacey Abrams doesn't know this. Stacey Abrams is a lawyer. She is well educated. She is well informed. She does research for a living. This is what she does. Her job is to find out the facts and argue them in a courtroom. She knows what's going on. So I find it very hard to believe that what she's doing is not intentional. Again, the difference in maternal mortality rate between black women and white women is abortion. Black women make up 7% of the U.S. population, but they account for 38% of abortions. That means that black women are having a disproportionate amount of abortions. And then here comes Stacey Abrams and tells black women to have more abortions. So what Stacey Abrams is promoting is literal genocide. She's telling black women to abort their children and then kill themselves in the process. If Stacey Abrams gets her way, black people will cease to exist. It sounds kind of familiar, right? Remember that person, Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood? Doesn't her plans and Stacey Abrams' plans sound eerily similar? What Stacey Abrams is doing is wicked and evil and disgusting. But guess what? If you think all of this is bad, you ain't seen nothing yet.
During my tenure in the legislature, I helped defeat HB 1155, which was a bill that attempted to use eugenics as a justification for disallowing abortion. I fought against the 20-week ban and helped keep it tied up in court for 6 years. Unfortunately, after I left the legislature, Brian Kemp, upon becoming governor, passed this terrible 6-week ban. But I'm unequivocal. I believe in the right to an abortion.
Wait a minute. Did I hear that right? You got to run that back.
I fought against the 20-week ban and helped keep it tied up in court for 6 years. I fought against the 20-week ban and helped keep it tied up in court for 6 years.
So let me get this straight. Stacey Abrams wasn't satisfied with the 5-month abortion limit, even though if the pregnancy was going to compromise the woman's health or the child's health, the woman could still have an abortion up to 9 months. And I might also add that at 5 months, those 20 weeks, the baby can feel pain. That means when they're doing those procedures, the baby is feeling everything. Now imagine your child screaming in the womb as it's being killed by a doctor. That sounds horrible, doesn't it? But Stacey Abrams wasn't satisfied with the 5-month abortion limit. Stacey Abrams isn't satisfied with the 6-week abortion limit after the heartbeat is detected. So Stacey Abrams seems to want full-term abortions. Why do I say this? Because Stacey Abrams has been fighting this for over 10 years. And when she gets these things tied up in court, women still have abortions up to 9 months. So it seems like that is Stacey Abrams' goal.
But what about the lives and safety? What about the lives and safety of the child?
Brian Kemp has refused to expand Medicaid in the state of Georgia. He has refused to support women at every stage of their lives when they are trying to make the best choices for themselves and their families. And the reality is, if we care about the medical needs of women, especially Black women, then we have to care the entire time.
I understood, but I'm just asking you. I asked you about when you see. I asked you if you believe in it all the way up to 9 months. So I'm just asking you. You're talking about caring about the lives of women. I'm just asking, at what point do you start to care about the life of that baby girl in some cases?
What I would say is that it is a medical decision. I don't know of a single woman who reaches the stage where this decision is easy. That is not the case. And so this is a medical conversation. And while we are absolutely compelled to have these difficult conversations, they should not be political ones. I should not be making decisions without having true understanding of the facts, and nor should any other political leader. This is not a political issue.
So I'm going
to
take that as up to 9 months in some cases, depending on the woman. Correct?
That is not what I said. I said this is a medical decision, and the medical decisions that have to be made in context. This is a specious approach to try to denude the entire argument. And the reality is abortion and reproductive care is personal, and it is singular, and it should be made between a woman and her doctor. I do not have either the experience or the capacity to know what is happening with others.
Okay. I also want to thank the leadership of Chairwoman Sharon Cooper, a member of the Cobb County delegation who also has taken bold steps to address maternal mortality in our state. Through HB 1114, that shows you how much we were dealing with down there, over 1,000 bills in the House. It's impressive that you get one through, Sharon. HB 1114 maybe be a But with that piece of legislation, we're going to enhance access to quality and timely care for mothers on Medicaid. Coupled with other investments, including the Morehouse School of Medicine, HB 1114 will dramatically improve health outcomes for Georgia mothers. That's something that we can all agree on. This generational impact of this legislation cannot be overstated. These two bills are joined by several other pieces of legislation that I'll be signing today, all of which accomplish what we had promised to do. That is to streamline bureaucracy increase access to quality care, insist on transparency and fairness, improve health outcomes, and put Georgia families first. I'm grateful for the hard work of the legislators here today, along with our partners again in the medical field, the private sector, and our local communities.
And there it is. Governor Kemp, barely in office, decides to address the maternal mortality rate in Georgia. He decides to extend Medicaid from 60 days to 6 months for women's postpartum period. That is, after she gives birth. Now ask yourselves a question. Why would Stacey Abrams lie on Governor Kemp? You mean to tell me Stacey Abrams would lie about abortion and then turn around and lie on a person trying to fix the mess that she made? This is crazy. You know, I got to thinking, for Stacey Abrams to be going this hard for abortion, it almost seems like she's working for Planned Parenthood. And then I saw this.
Planned Parenthood is redefining its description of a fetal heartbeat on its website after Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams' claim. Now, Planned Parenthood scrubbing mentions of a fetal heartbeat from its site, instead writing that at 6 weeks gestation, quote, a part of the embryo starts to show cardiac activity. It sounds like a heartbeat on an ultrasound, but it's not a fully formed heart. It's the earliest stage of the heart developing.
During fertilization, the sperm joins with the egg to form one cell. This single cell has its own DNA, the complex genetic makeup for every detail of a new human being. After fertilization, nothing new is added but oxygen, nutrition, and time. During the first month, foundations of the brain, spinal cord, and nervous system are already established, and by day 21, the heart begins to beat in a regular fashion. During the second month, the baby begins to swallow and sometimes hiccups. Fingers and toes are developing, and at 7 weeks, the chest and abdomen are fully formed. Unique fingerprints are evident and never change. The baby now sleeps, wakes, and exercises her muscles. By the end of the month, all the organs and systems of her body are fully functioning. By the end of the 4th month, the baby is 8 to 10 inches long and weighs about 1/2 pound. She can hear her mother's heartbeat as well as external noises like music. In the 5th month, sound is especially loud. The baby may jump in reaction to it. She is growing rapidly in size and strength while her lungs become more developed. The baby can now recognize her mother's voice. She stretches and kicks, she can hear, touch, and taste, and even look around with open eyes. The baby's kicks are stronger, and mom may be able to feel an elbow or heel against her abdomen. Gaining 1/2 pound per week, the baby is getting ready for birth. The bones in her head are soft and flexible to more easily mold for the journey down the birth canal. Of the 45 generations of cell divisions before adulthood, 41 have already taken place. 90% of a person's development happens in the womb.
Now, why in the world would Planned Parenthood change their definition to make what Stacey Abrams said not seem so crazy about them having a manufactured heartbeat? Think about what Planned Parenthood is doing for Stacey Abrams. Who is she? The new Margaret Sanger? With all of this going on, I said somebody has to be getting paid. So I decided to look into it and follow the money. Now think about this. Why would Planned Parenthood change the definition for Stacey Abrams? Who is she? The new Margaret Sanger? I started thinking, and you know what I came up with? Somebody has to be paying Stacey Abrams. She has to be getting paid by Planned Parenthood. And you know what? I was right. She is getting paid by Planned Parenthood. We see $8,000 in the form of 2 payments. And that's just what I saw. I guarantee if I really did some more digging, I'd probably come up with the treasure chest of abortion funds being given to Stacey Abrams. But I got to thinking some more. And I thought about, well, what about her partner in crime? Because he's also very pro-abortion. You know who he is, the good old Reverend Raphael Warnock. I looked into it, and guess what? Warnock is being paid as well. As you can see, Warnock is being paid from the National Abortion Rights, the Action League, and Planned Parenthood for a grand total of $77,319.79. That's somebody's salary. So we have two people in Georgia that are being funded by Planned Parenthood, and these two people want to lead you into the promised land.
So, Ms. Abrams, back to the root of Joe's question that he just asked you. You're running for governor of Georgia. I would assume, maybe incorrectly, but while abortion is an issue, it nowhere reaches the level of interest of voters in terms of the cost of gas, food, bread, milk, things like that. What could you do as governor to alleviate the concerns of Georgia voters about those livability, daily, hourly issues that they're confronted with?
But let's be clear. Having children is why you're worried about your price for gas. It's why you're concerned about how much food costs. For women, this is not a reductive issue. You can't divorce being forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy from the economic realities of having a child. And so it's important for us to have both and conversations. We don't have the luxury of reducing it or separating them out, but we also have to talk about what a governor can do. A governor can address housing prices. A governor can address the cost of education. A governor can put money into the pockets of everyday hardworking Georgians instead of giving tax cuts to the wealthy. That's what I talk about on the trail, and that's what's resonating. But let's not pretend that women, half the population, especially those of childbearing age, they understand that having a child is absolutely an economic issue. It is only politicians who see it as simply another cultural conversation. It is a real biological and economic imperative conversation that women need to have.
So now that we've seen Planned Parenthood financially support a woman that would promote genocide among the women of her community, and also a pastor that would do the same, let's see what Planned Parenthood's true intentions are.
Boyfriend the other day.
The woman speaking is posing as a 15-year-old seeking sex advice at the Planned Parenthood in Littleton.
He mentioned that book, 50 Shades of Grey.
The staff member explains what happens in that very adult book.
Like tying up and gagging involved.
And then,
have you guys ever gone to a sex shop together?
No.
Okay,
well, what is that?
There's tons of sex shops around here.
The worker even encourages watching pornography.
And then do some research online, like maybe watch porn or something.
Yep, and you guys can do that together. You can do it on your own.
And a similar tone at the Lakewood Planned Parenthood.
Handcuffs, more of a combination between pleasure and pain. Figure out a safe word.
A Catholic news outlet reports that Attorney General John Suthers is now investigating.
Now your child is going to Planned Parenthood to get, as Stacey Abrams calls it, medical advice from professionals. So why would the medical professionals at Planned Parenthood be encouraging young girls to have freaky sex? Let's take a look at this next video.
If we could provide...
The latest video in a sustained effort to undermine support for Planned Parenthood reprises the dramatic effects that have helped the Center for Medical Progress stoke the growing controversy. Edited undercover video with a Planned Parenthood research director in Texas talking about extracting intact fetus cadavers and body parts from abortions for use in fetal tissue research.
So that anything that we integrate into that procedure without having you cover the procedural cost is going to be higher, right? So anything about higher gestational age, there's more opportunity for complication.
Interspersed with talk about budgets and money.
If we alter our process and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers, then we can make it part of the budget that any dissections are this, and splitting the specimens into different shipments is this. I mean, it's all just a matter of line items.
The end of the video includes graphic pictures of what is described as fetal tissue with the voices of the actors who posed as representatives of a company that collects tissue samples, asking questions and identifying body parts with Planned Parenthood lab technicians. Today, even before it was released, the leader of the group responsible for the video predicted it would have more impact than the other productions.
It's perhaps going to be even more shocking. You're going to see evidence in it of how Planned Parenthood is actually willing to sell fully intact fetuses to buyers of aborted fetal tissue.
Planned Parenthood, facing a sustained push in Congress to stop the group from getting government funding, is in full damage control mode.
What we're seeing here are attacks on people's ability to get health care.
Several states, including Texas, have launched Planned Parenthood investigations, with the video accusing the group of offering to adjust medical procedures in order to preserve tissue and parts for research groups to purchase. There are calls for the Justice Department to investigate. Planned Parenthood asserted the footage released today doesn't show Planned Parenthood staff engaged in any wrongdoing or agreeing to violate any legal or medical standards.
In more pro-life news, new undercover Planned Parenthood video is released.
My biceps appreciate when the ditch works. I have to hit the gym for this. I just gotta hit the gym. Let's go to the gym.
That's a former medical director of a Planned Parenthood saying she needs to go to the gym to perform a dismemberment abortion with forceps. Dr. Deshaun Taylor describes how to deliver babies intact during late-term abortions, allegedly in order to harvest body parts. It's the latest video released by the Center for Medical Progress. David Lyin is the man behind the undercover Planned Parenthood videos and project lead at the Center for Medical Progress. He joins us from our EWTN studios in Garden Grove, California. David, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me on.
David, in Arizona, it is law that if a baby that's being aborted shows signs of life, that baby must be transported to the hospital. When you asked Dr. Deshaun Taylor about that protocol, she said the key is you need to pay attention to who is in the room. You were the one in conversation with Dr. Taylor. What did you gather she meant by that?
That was one of the most disturbing comments that I have ever heard from any Planned Parenthood abortion doctor, or really any abortion doctor, in my time undercover in the abortion industry. When the law is that if a baby comes out intact in a late-term abortion, and you're supposed to check for the signs of life of the baby, whether there's a beating heart, or respiration, or pulsation of the umbilical cord, or movement of voluntary muscles, and if there's signs of life, you're supposed to do everything you can to save the baby. When I asked Dr. Taylor, this longtime Planned Parenthood abortion doctor, what her standard procedure was for verifying signs of life, this is a doctor who does abortions up to 5 and 6 months of pregnancy on healthy, viable children, her response was, well, the key is you need to pay attention to who else is in the room with you. And that was one of about 3 times when we talked to her when she made comments about paying attention to who else was in the room or paying attention to the reactions of the other staff workers in the clinic that they might have to seeing a viable late-term fetus come out in one piece. So it's highly disturbing, and I think that that's prima facie evidence of a willingness to cover up infanticide and not to comply with the law to protect the lives of late-term, born-alive, viable infants.
Stuff like this. The latest sting video is also the most graphic. It shows a Planned Parenthood doctor in Colorado examining a fetus and isolating different organs.
I think the per item thing works a little better just because we can see how much we can get out of it.
Planned Parenthood is willing to break the law to remove that baby from the womb. Doctors are willing to alter procedures. Doctors are saying they have to go to the gym to work out, to have enough strength to pull the baby out. Clearly, this can't be good for a woman's reproductive organs. Planned Parenthood cares about the baby for science and for profit. That's it. And they don't care about the woman at all. How disgusting is that? How horrible and terrible is that? We've already established that 2 millimeters, going from 9 millimeters to 11 millimeters, increases the chances of miscarriage from almost 13% to almost 67%. This is wicked, this is evil, and this is disgusting. But I want you all to think back to those states, the only states that investigated Planned Parenthood. Now, this is the reason that those states investigated Planned Parenthood. And it's because 86% of the Planned Parenthood abortion facilities are in minority communities. Now take a look at the states with the strictest abortion laws. As you can see, the states with the strictest or stricter abortion laws are the states that investigated Planned Parenthood. And we can agree that Planned Parenthood, having 86% of their abortion facilities in minority communities, is predatory and wrong. These strict or stricter abortion laws weren't put in place to punish women or take away their rights. These stricter laws were put in place to actually protect women, to actually save women's lives, especially black women who abort their children at the highest rate in the country at 38%.
I want to ask you, especially before you go, about abortion. You've made headlines on that topic lately. You're not the only one. Kanye West, or Ye, talking to our Tucker Carlson this week, had this to say.
I care about the fact that there's more black babies being aborted than born in New York City.
The most recently available data from New York City's Department of Health seems to support what he's saying there. But more broadly, according to the CDC, about 38% of abortions were obtained in the U.S. by black women. The U.S. Census Bureau, though, says that just 13.6% of our population is black. Do you share Ye's concern that black Americans are disproportionately impacted, he says, by abortion?
I share the concern of women across the state of Georgia that they are being denied access to medical care. That in the state of Georgia, black women are most likely to die of maternal mortality issues because they're denied access to health care under this governor before they get pregnant. They are denied access to medical care during their pregnancy because of the medical shortage that we have in the state of Georgia, fomented by this governor. That when they have this child, if they choose to carry a child to term, if they're even allowed the choice of what they want to do, that postpartum, they are denied access to health care afterwards. We know that in Brian Kemp's Georgia, a black woman faces a lethal choice, and that is to either have a crystal ball and know she's pregnant before she can actually know, or face forced pregnancy with very little support. And unfortunately, unless I replace Brian Kemp, there will be a desert of access for black women across the South. Georgia will be the only state, if I become governor, we will be the only state from Texas to South Carolina where women can have access to care. That's 56% of the black population of the United States centered in the South and denied access to life-saving medical care. And so I'm going to fight as hard as I can to protect the right to abortion, because that's how we protect the rights of women, and that's how we protect the rights of Georgians.
Were you to become governor, where would you draw the line? 15 weeks, viability, 36 weeks? What's the limit?
What I've always said is that abortion is a medical decision that should be made by a doctor and the woman, and that the point of viability as determined by a doctor should always take into consideration the life and health of a woman. That should be the standard.
Now, if you listen carefully to Stacey Abrams, you can hear her evil and twisted plot. Stacey Abrams is saying that Georgia will be the only place, if she's governor, that a woman in the South can have an abortion. So what is she saying? She's saying that she wants to be the queen of the South. She wants to be the one to control abortion. She wants to sit on her throne and welcome all the women from across the Southeast to come and get an abortion. But more importantly, she wants to do this with black women, because black women lead the nation in abortion, and black women in Georgia have the highest maternal mortality rate.
2019, 15,000 plus abortions were done. 46% of them were done by black women. Now, if the KKK had said we will pay for every black woman to have an abortion who wants one, we would say to ourselves, wait a minute, something's up. Why don't they want us to have our babies?
Now, I know you all are sitting there right now thinking, I can't believe Stacey Abrams was like this. I can't believe that Stacey Abrams would be a part of some agenda that would end the life of black children and black women. But I assure you that she is. You know, Stacey Abrams gets most of her funding outside of Georgia. She only gets 12% of her funding from Georgia. The rest of her funding comes from states like California, New York, and Washington, D.C. Stacey Abrams is literally following in the footsteps of Margaret Sanger. I imagine that Margaret Sanger is probably somewhere dancing in the flames of hell, happy that someone decided to carry the torch. No pun intended. But let's listen to Margaret Sanger and what she thought about black people way back when. Let's listen and see what Margaret Sanger envisioned when it came to Planned Parenthood. This letter is dated December the 10th, 1939. Miss Rose sent me a copy of your letter of December 5th, and I know that you doubt it worthwhile to employ a full-time Negro physician. It seems to me from my experience where I have been in North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas, that while the colored Negroes have great respect for white doctors, they can get closer to their own members and more or less lay their cards on the table, which means their ignorance, superstitions, and doubts. They do not do this with the white people. If we can train the Negro doctor at the clinic, he can go among them with enthusiasm and with knowledge, which I believe will have far-reaching results among the colored people. His work, in my opinion, should be entirely with Negro professions and the nurse, hospitals, social workers, as well as the county's white doctors. His success will depend upon his personality and his training by us. The minister's work is also important, and also he should be trained, perhaps by the Federation, as to our ideals and goals that we hope to reach. We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. So as you can see, Margaret Sanger's plan is being carried out through Stacey Yvonne Abrams and Raphael Warnock, the Reverend. I hope you all enjoyed this presentation, and I hope I gave you something to think about before you go and cast your vote. And as always, remember, I love you and take care. One more thing. If Stacey Abrams can't get you to abort your baby, she's going to make all of you all suffer.
The Georgia Department of Revenue announced last week that Georgians can now claim an unborn child as a dependent on their state taxes. Would you overturn that if you become governor?
Absolutely.